science is just another story. It's a good story. It seems to work pretty well, but whether there's really atoms and all that, it's irrelevant. It seems as though it's a good story. It works. The people of Nagasaki and Hiroshima know it ain't no bullshit story. But it's still just a story.
Yeah, it is. But it's a true story.
No, it's not a true story.
How do you figure?
It's just a story. It's a story that works.
But it must be true if it blows up.
No. That doesn't have anything to do. Plenty of things have been shown to work from a theory that turned out later to be bullshit. You ever heard of phlogiston?
No.
Well, back in the 13th century, there were people thinking about stuff back then. And fire, when stuff burned, they had a theory for why stuff burned. Mm-hmm. And the reason they said is that because everything that you can burn has this stuff called phlogiston in it. They just made up the name, but they said basically if it can burn, it has phlogiston. And what happens when something burns, you take a block of wood and it weighs 40 pounds. What's happened when it's left over, when you burned it and there's a bunch of ashes, those ashes are dephlogistonated wood. That what happens when something burns is the phlogiston leaves, and what's left over is everything but the phlogiston.
Well,
and that's a perfectly good theory. It worked, and for hundreds of years, people said, "Yeah, that's obviously true. Look, here's a block of wood. It weighs 10 pounds. You burn it, and it weighs about 3 ounces. The ashes. Yeah. What happened to the rest of it? Oh, the phlogiston left."
Yeah, but that was
a good story for the time.
But that's not really the same thing, is it? I mean, a nuclear bomb is based and built in such a way that it has to work in the way it does for it to ever blow up, meaning that if the atoms weren't there and if they didn't work the way they did, then this bomb wouldn't work.
No, it doesn't mean that at all.
Of course it does, otherwise it wouldn't blow up.
No, it would. How it really is, we don't know. Again, our story works. That's the important thing about science, is that it works.
But I mean, it works upon the fact that, I mean, when you build a nuclear bomb, it's built in such a way that it will work together with the story.
But this is all your story about that, too.
I know.
About how it has to be.
A phone wouldn't work if that story wasn't true.
I'm not quite sure how I can explain this to you. I'm having a little difficulty. All I can say is, it's actually, this also gets down to the 5 stupidities stuff. If you eliminate the verb to be, when you say something is true, then you can't even say that, because the verb to be, it turns out, is just meaningless. We want to know, this is true. But there can be more than one true map for the same territory.
Probably sometimes.
Not all the time. I mean, you can have a topo map and a street map. Which one is the true map?
Kind of like quantum mechanics in the real world, or the world that we live in. I mean, we don't know it's there, but it's working, and it's somehow there, and it's...
Well, maybe it's there, maybe it's not. No one's ever seen a quark,
Well, no.
No one's ever seen an atom, actually, or even a molecule, for that sense. We've got images that our instruments have created for us, but those instruments are created to give us those. I mean, they're designed to give us those images, so that doesn't really prove a whole hell of a lot. I mean, they got a theory, and they designed the instrument to make it come up that way.
But it proves that it's there.
That what's there?
That, a molecule is there. It doesn't mean it's the whole story, but it means it's there.
It is there.
It's physically there. It has to be there in order for
even the whole idea of objective reality is just a story. Again, all I have is my experience. The rest is all story. The idea that there's really a physical world out there, out there, outside of my body, this floor I'm sitting on that is really a rug, and under that rug is really a hardwood floor, and under that is some dirt, and that all of this stuff, and that you're over there, and blah blah blah, all of that shit is just story. It's a theory.
It is. Well, sure, but
and it's not a bad theory. Again, it's a theory that we all sort of have been brought up with and have a sort of intuitive feeling for. But it doesn't change its status. It's just a story.
It is a story, but I mean, it doesn't mean it's not true.
It doesn't mean it is true. It doesn't mean anything about truth.
It is true to the point of what we know.
Well, I'm not sure. You know, this is good because I have never been good at explaining this. To me, it's all really obvious. But it's taken years for this to become obvious.
Well, I think I'm trying to imagine what you're saying, and I think I'm getting
well, when you say something is true, I think the analogy to topo maps and street maps is a really good one.
Yeah.
Whatever is really there is a mystery.
Yeah.
Reality.
I mean, itself. When you said that, well, how do we really know that this world is here? It's all in your head and so on. And then I could say, well, if I died, you would still experience the world that's here. But then you could say, how do you know?
Yeah, that's irrelevant. That doesn't mean anything.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, now I get it.
I mean, basically, each of us is sort of in our own little universe somehow.
Yeah.
But here we are talking.
Yeah. From instruments that have been made from stories based on stories that somebody
and again, this is all my attempt to try to figure out because the ways you're talking about it, the idea that there really are atoms and stuff, that's the way we've been talking about so-called reality for the last couple thousand years.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't go anywhere. If you start from that place, then the constraints on that are just, you can only go so far with that.
Yeah.
And again, not that that's wrong. I'm not saying that it's a bad way to think, that we shouldn't think that there is an objective reality out there that has its properties independent of us. That's a really reasonable, good way to think. It's just not the truth. It's just a way of thinking that appears to be quite productive.
But, productive in the way that we can design cell phones that actually works.
Yeah, here we are talking on TeamSpeak, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, I just can't really figure out how you can say that it's just a story when it's working.
It's a good story. There's some stories they had good stories before. The stories people used to believe, we laugh at.
I know, but
and they thought they were perfectly adequate stories.
Yeah, but I mean, it's different when you observe something happening, such as the what do you call it, phlogiston thingy. You're not creating an instrument based on the phlogiston theory. You're just trying to explain something happening.
Yeah.
So
well, actually, they did. They did, and of course, that's how they finally figured out that was a bogus theory.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when you design something that that is based on the story that everyone has, then, and it's working, what you're designing to do is working.
That's great evidence that it's a good story.
Meaning that it's a certain truth to it.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, that's where I just don't see any need to add that little last bit. I don't think that adds anything. In fact, I think it gets in the way. I don't see that adds anything.
Yeah, you think it's a limitation because we go, okay, well, that's all
now
there is.
We've got
to
the
it.
Truth.
That's all there is. There's nothing more. We got it.
Yeah,
well,
it's just unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to it. It's a good story. It works. That's enough.
Yeah. Well, that's what you think they say when they go, that's the truth. That's the way it is. I mean.
Well, that is what they say. That's what they feel. That's what they think.
Well,
most people think, now we know what's really going on. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to a lot of people who were brought up Christians. They become atheists And they think, now we've got it.
Yeah.
And, as far as I'm concerned, atheism is as dumb as Christianity. The fact is, we don't know.
Yeah.